The wine was already moving when Corvin looked up. She saw the glass tilt, saw the particular stillness of the hand, holding it, not the reflexive jerk of an accident, but a controlled, deliberate pour. And then the red hit the white of her shirt in a long diagonal sweep from collarbone to waist, and the entire reception seemed to hold one collective breath. Leonora Fenn stood close enough that Corvin could see the exact shade of her gray-green eyes, and the fact that they were not sorry. "Oops," Leonora said. She held the empty glass with the ease of a woman who had never apologized for anything she actually meant to do. "Now you have to come to my office." She turned and walked toward the elevator before Corvin finished processing the sentence. Corvin looked down at her shirt. The red was spreading through the white silk in the slow, thorough way of something permanent. Around her the reception continued, the clink of other glasses, the murmur of clients and colleagues, and across the room in her peripheral vision she was aware of Oriana Pell going very still with a champagne flute halfway to her mouth. Daphne appeared at Corvin's elbow with a fistful of cocktail napkins and an expression caught exactly between horror and absolute delight. "So," Daphne said, "that happened." "Yes. She did that on purpose." "Are you going to follow her?" Corvin took one napkin, pressed it briefly against the stain in a gesture that both of them understood was not going to accomplish anything, and handed the rest back. "I'm going to find out what she does next." Daphne stared at her. "That is not the same thing as being careful." "No," Corvin agreed. "It isn't. If you have ever watched someone make a move they absolutely meant to make and felt the specific pull of wanting to see how far they were willing to go, subscribe to GL Story Hub." The elevator was already open when Corvin reached it. Leonora was inside, facing forward, watching the doors with the patience of someone who had been waiting for considerably longer than 30 seconds. Corvin stepped in. The doors closed. 17 floors. Neither of them looked at each other for the first 10. "You knew," Leonora said, "not a question." "You paused before you tilted the glass," Corvin said. "You checked the room first, and you were standing in the exact position you needed to be standing." 2 floors of silence. "You've been watching me," Leonora said. "You've been watching me for 8 months," Corvin said. "I thought it was only fair." The elevator opened. Leonora walked out first and Corvin followed, and the city appeared through the floor-to-ceiling glass of the executive floor. Vast and lit and indifferent, and Corvin took in the office the way she took in most things, which was thoroughly and without letting it show. The desk was clean, one lamp on. The chair behind it was the kind of chair that had never been occupied by someone who doubted their right to be there. On the wall to the left, a framed acquisition map of the firm's current portfolio. On the right, nothing, which told Corvin more about Leonora than the map did. People who left walls empty had decided that what they carried internally was sufficient. "Sit," Leonora said. "I'm fine standing." Leonora looked at her for a moment and then moved to the closet on the far side of the office, opened it, and removed a folded shirt from the second shelf. She held it out. Corvin did not take it immediately. She looked at it. White, fitted, clearly not Leonora's size. "What size is that?" Corvin said. "Your size." "You keep a shirt in my size in your office closet." "I keep a spare shirt in the office." "In my size." Leonora set it on the desk between them rather than continuing to hold it out. She moved to the window and looked at the city and said nothing. For a moment that lasted exactly long enough to communicate that she had no clean explanation available and had decided not to perform one. "There's a bathroom through that door," she said. "Take your time." Corvin picked up the shirt. She looked at Leonora's back, the precise line of her shoulders in the burgundy dress, the auburn of her chignon catching the lamplight. And then she went through the door and changed and came back and draped the ruined white shirt over the arm of the chair nearest the desk. She did not sit in the chair. She stood behind it with both hands resting on the back and looked at Leonora, who had turned from the window. "Why am I here?" Corvin said. I would think that was becoming clear. I mean what you actually needed to tell me. The wine was two things. I want to know the second one. Something moved through Leonora's expression. Not surprise exactly. More the specific recalibration of a person who has encountered an unexpected grade of resistance and found it interesting rather than inconvenient. She moved to the desk and sat on the edge of it, which Corvin noted was not the same as sitting behind it. A deliberate choice of position, not authority. Proximity. The Callaway acquisition, Leonora said. Corvin went still. 6 months of work. The deal she had built from a cold contact into a $63 million valuation with a preliminary terms sheet that 3 senior directors had described in the last partners meeting as the cleanest origination the firm had seen in 4 years. What about it? Corvin said. There is a clause in your employment contract. Section 14, subsection C. It grants the firm the right to reassign any deal in active negotiation if a senior director determines that the originating strategist's caseload presents a conflict of resource allocation. The city outside continued its indifferent light show. Someone is invoking it, Corvin said. Someone intends to, by Monday morning. Before Leonora could answer, her phone on the desk lit up. She glanced at it. Something shifted in her jaw, a tightening so controlled it was almost invisible and would have been invisible to anyone who had not been paying the quality of attention Corvin had been paying. Leonora turned the phone face down. Who? Corvin said again. A board member named Carver. He's been managing Oriana Pell's elevation within the firm for approximately 2 years. She needs a successful origination attached to her name before the shareholder review in 6 weeks. The Callaway deal is the only acquisition of sufficient scale currently in a transferable stage. Corvin absorbed this. She thought about Oriana at the reception. Champagne flute paused, watching the wine incident with an expression that was too still to be neutral. She had been there to make contact tonight. That was what the stillness meant, not curiosity. Preparation. She was going to approach me tonight, Corvin said. At the reception, before you... Yes. With what? A lateral offer, a competitor firm, framed as an opportunity. Leonora's voice was precise and uninflected. If you had left the firm voluntarily, the Callaway deal would have been reassigned as standard procedure without the clause needing to be invoked at all. Cleaner, less visible. Corvin looked at her. And the wine was faster than letting me get to the conversation with her. The wine was several things, Leonora said, and for the first time that evening her voice carried something that was not quite precision, something that existed in the register just below it, where things were true rather than strategic. Not all of them were entirely professional. Corvin said nothing. She moved from behind the chair and walked to the desk and opened her laptop, which she had brought up in her bag, and pulled up the official Callaway acquisition file. She turned the screen toward Leonora. This is what they had been taking, she said. Leonora leaned forward to look. Strong file, clean structure. The valuation methodology was solid, rigorous, and well documented, and exactly what a $63 million deal required. Corvin reached to close the window, and for 1 second in which neither of them moved, the document underneath was visible. A different file, different formatting, denser. Then Leonora's eyes moved across the screen, and something happened in them that was not professional assessment. Corvin closed the laptop. Leonora straightened up. She looked at Corvin's face, and Corvin looked back, and neither of them referenced what had just happened. Leonora moved to the window again. Corvin did not move at all. 1 minute passed. Then 2. The document underneath, Leonora said without turning from the window. Which document? The one you closed. I don't know what you're referring to. Yes, you do. Leonora turned. Her gray-green eyes were doing something Corvin had not seen them do before in 8 months of careful observation. They were entirely unguarded. The valuation architecture in that file, the way the acquisition sequence was structured, the weighting methodology on the heritage asset classification. She paused. I developed that approach. In 2019, for the Meridian deal. I have never published it. I've never shared it. Corvin looked at her steadily. I developed it independently, on my own time. I know, Leonora said, and then more quietly, I know. The room held that sentence for a moment. Show me, Leonora said. Leonora blinked. It was, Corvin noted with private satisfaction, the first time she had blinked in surprise rather than rhythm since the office door closed. No, Corvin said again, conversationally. I built that version because I suspected the Callaway deal might be targeted. It's the stronger strategy. I'm not showing it to you until I know whether this building is a safe place to leave it. The silence that followed was different from all the previous silences. It had weight, and it had honesty in it. And it had the specific quality of a moment where both people in a room understand simultaneously that they have stopped performing. That's fair, Leonora said. A knock at the office door. One knock, efficient and brief. The door opened and Tobias Ashgrove stepped inside, tall, composed, carrying a tablet with the expression of a man who had walked into situations that were none of his business before, and had developed a reliable internal procedure for them. He looked at Leonora. He looked at Corvin. He looked at the ruined white shirt draped over the chair. He set the tablet on the corner of the desk with the alert visible on the screen and left without being asked to. Leonora looked at the tablet. Her expression went very still in a way that was different from her controlled stillness. This was the stillness of something being decided. Corvin looked at the screen from where she stood. She could read enough. Oriana's complaint, filed through the board liaison, preferential treatment allegation, 8 months of documented observation, formally submitted at 11:47. She had been building it, Corvin said. Yes. How accurate is it? Leonora met her eyes, partially. Which parts? The observation, a pause, the attention. Corvin nodded slowly. She did not look away and she did not make the moment smaller than it was. What are you going to do? Leonora picked up her phone from the desk. She looked at it for 3 seconds with the expression of a woman who has been carrying something for a long time and has just decided to put it down somewhere public where it cannot be quietly retrieved. Something I should have done 2 years ago, she said. She dialed. It was 12 minutes past midnight. The call was answered in 4 rings, and what followed was not a long conversation. Leonora spoke with the economy of someone who had rehearsed this in their head for 24 months and had simply been waiting for the right catalyst. She invoked the emergency review clause. She named the leverage. She named Carver. She named the private agreement that had been used to keep her quiet. She stated clearly and without drama that she was placing the matter before the full board on record and that any actions taken against any employee of the firm pending the review would be considered retaliatory and documented accordingly. She ended the call. Corvin had not moved. She had watched Leonora's face through all 12 minutes, not the window, not the city, not the tablet on the desk. Leonora's face. The particular quality of someone using power they have been sitting on for 6 years, and the specific expression of a person who does not yet know how it feels to have finally used it. It looked, Corvin thought, like the first honest breath after a very long time of breathing carefully. Leonora set the phone down. The city below them continued its indifferent luminosity. Neither of them spoke for a moment. The agreement Carver was using, Corvin said. It's on the record now. Yes. Which means it stops working as leverage. That is generally how exposure functions. And Oriana's complaint collapses because the behavior she documented was consistent across 3 other employees over 2 years. 4, Leonora said. Carver missed one. You were protecting them. I was managing a situation with the tools I had available at the time. She paused. They were insufficient tools. I was aware of that. Tonight, the tools changed. Corvin looked at her. What changed them? Leonora did not answer immediately. She moved to the desk and picked up the ruined white shirt from the arm of the chair and held it for a moment in a way that had nothing to do with the fabric. The shirt, she said finally. I ordered it after your first week. You spilled coffee on yourself in the Hartwell client meeting. You handled it without flinching, and then you went back to your presentation and finished it. And it was the best junior pitch I had seen in 6 years of running this floor. She stopped. She looked at the shirt in her hands. I went back to my office afterward and I sat here for 20 minutes and I thought. She stopped again. You thought what? Corvin said quietly. I thought that I had never seen someone hold themselves together in a room that was working against them with that particular quality of... She looked up. Her gray-green eyes were doing the unguarded thing again, and this time she was not trying to close it off. I ordered the shirt because it seemed like the kind of thing a person might need. And then I kept it here because I could not find a version of returning it that did not require an explanation. I was not prepared to give. She held it out. Corvin crossed the room and took it from her hands. They were standing close enough that the city behind Leonora was soft and secondary, and the lamp made the auburn of her hair warm rather than dark. Before you hear how this ends, if this story puts you in that specific feeling of watching someone careful finally choose to stop being careful, subscribe to GL Story Hub and tell me in the comments Leonora kept that shirt for 8 months. Is that devotion or is it something she should have done differently? Corvin looked at the shirt in her hands. Then she folded it, the ruined one, not the spare, and tucked it under her arm with the deliberateness of someone making a decision about what to keep. She picked up her bag. She picked up her laptop. She walked to the office door. She stopped. She did not turn around immediately. She stood at the door with her hand not yet on the handle, and the city still glowing through the glass behind Leonora, and the lamp still warm on the desk and the spare shirt still on the chair where she had left it, because she had taken the ruined one instead. Then she said without turning, For what it's worth, the Meridian deal. I read the public filing in my 2nd month here. The financial structure was standard, but the way the asset sequence was weighted, nobody taught me that. I just recognized it. The way you recognize a way of thinking. She paused. I thought whoever built that approach was probably the most interesting person in the building, she said. And then I met you and I thought, yes, obviously, of course it was her. She turned the handle. Behind her, Leonora Fenn, managing director, 31% stakeholder, the most controlled woman in any room she had ever entered, said nothing. But Corvin heard her breathe, which was not nothing. It was in fact the specific sound of a careful woman choosing, for the first time in a long time, not to be. Corvin opened the door. She did not go through it. The city below them continued its indifferent glittering, and the lamp on the desk held its warm circle of light, and the ruined white shirt was under Corvin's arm, and neither woman was leaving, and the night, which had started with wine and a deliberate hand and 4 words that were never an accident, was nowhere near finished. Some people spend years being the most controlled person in every room they enter, and then someone recognizes the way they think, not the performance of it, not the product of it, but the actual architecture underneath, and control stops being the most important thing available. The shirt under Corvin's arm was not a souvenir. It was evidence that something real had happened in a room where both women had arrived pretending otherwise, and neither of them was pretending anymore.